Thank you for coming. We have a really nice treat for you here today. Marije Vogelsang is someone who is kind of teaching us to have conversations with our food and think about our food differently. She's a food designer, stylist. She thinks about food, our relationship with it, wonders things like, what if our food could talk to us? What might it say? What kind of conversation we have? What's our relationship with the food that we eat? I encourage you to check out her Instagram. There's a really interesting thing she's doing called Lick It that explores these concepts. And I'd really like to get forward with this talk. So I'm not up here, but we actually get some more time with Marije to talk about this stuff. We're going to put some things up on the screen. But welcome to Unfinished 2022. By the way, how many of you made it to last night? Yeah? How was it? All right, good, good. All right, so you're excited for today's chat, I hope. Awesome. Well, we have Marije is right here, so can we bring her up? Beautiful. So,
are you going to stay here?
Oh, let's have a seat.
All right.
Does that make sense? Great. Marije, could you tell me a little bit about how when you were a child, what was your relationship to food, and how did that lead you onto this crazy journey that you've landed on now?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question because I'm from the Netherlands, guys. I don't know if you've been there, but the food is not so good. And my mom doesn't really like to cook. And I think as a child, I was kind of mildly depressed about this fact because I didn't know that there was other kinds of food in the world. So I thought, well, I guess this is it. And I guess this kind of lack of stimulation sparked imagination. So I was always imagining things with my food. And then suddenly I discovered that there's a whole world of food. So then things started to click and I started to see that it's really exciting to use imagination with food.
Was that always something you dreamed of being, or did you have another occupation in mind when you went to school, and then did this thing just find you again?
Yeah, well, design in food didn't exist anyway, so that was not an option. So I wanted to be a farmer, and then I wanted to be a fairy, and then I wanted to be a pirate, and then I wanted to be a psychologist, and then I became a designer, and I think eventually I found like all these parts together in what I do now.
And what did you ever attempt to design things other than working with food? And how did it get you to food?
So I studied product design. So I was, studying to make tables and objects and maybe clothes or cars or planes. And I always thought, I don't know, there are already quite a lot of chairs in this world. I don't know if I really need to make another one. And you can't really taste a chair, and you can't smell a chair, and you can't really put that chair inside your body. And I think that's such a kind of fascinating idea that you can make something from a living material that was part of earth and the soil, and that you put it inside your body and it becomes you. And then while that happens, you also go to the bathroom again, and then that's my design just in the bowl, right? It's like I'm designing shit essentially. And I really like that. Yeah. I really like that because it requires a different attitude. Like you have to be humble when you design with food. It's not like plastics that can be molded and stays that way.
Yeah, it reminds me a bit of a lot of friends who are street artists. And one of the things you have to let go of when you're a street artist is you're not putting your work in a gallery where no one's allowed to touch it, or it beeps if you get too close to it. You're putting it out on a street where it could, A, you could get arrested while doing it, or B, this thing that took you, 8 hours of work to complete is erased by cops, or someone else tags it the next day, and you have to let go of that idea of your art being permanent and sacred, and you have to embrace and actually, when I talk to them, actually love the ephemeral nature of it, and the fact that it adapts to and reacts to and is part of its environment. So I imagine that's kind of how it is for you too.
Yeah, I love that it's ephemeral. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about like how far does the design go into it? Because when you consider design, you think of obviously there's a whole process of what's its meaning and relevance and purpose to other people. What function does this serve, or what function am I making sure that I don't care that it serves, but like what joy is this bringing? And is it about the structure of it? Is it about your relationship to people? What's your process when you think about applying design to food?
Well, eventually you're not designing the food. You're eventually designing the human experience. And so you always have to think about this eating human being that's putting this food inside your body. And maybe you want to make this person aware of social structures that they're not aware of, or maybe you want them to be grateful that there's tap water because it's there, it's magical. Yeah. So I think eventually all human beings are psychological storytellers. And I think this is where I link into with my work. And I just happen to use food for that, but you could also use other things. But I think food is just the most powerful material in the world.
Yeah, I agree. And it's so, especially now, it's such an important topic, not just because I think food has become very prominent in our culture and we live in this Food Network world where there's celebrity chefs and restaurants have risen, and Noma, obviously the power of Noma, and that's an amazing restaurant in Copenhagen, and its ability to influence everything around it, and other Scandinavian food culture too. They have a fermentation lab. They started MAD, and so they started a whole organization where you think about your relationship to food and what's happening with our environment now too. Food, it plays such a central role in our lives, but also our relationship to the world around us and what's happening to the world around us. Is any of that coming into play in the design that you do too? What's happening to the environment? And
absolutely, yeah. I'm going to show you some of that as well, but I think we are not aware that every time we eat, like it's political, but it's also influencing our environment. It's also influencing our landscapes. It's influencing ourselves from the inside, our general health, also our psychology, because how we feel is determined by our gut bacteria, not necessarily by our brain. Yeah. So it's interwoven with everything, and it is our basic need. Yeah. So it is so diversional. I don't know if that's a word. Anyway,
it is today.
Yeah. And I think we need many more designers starting to work with food, because there are people like chef, like you're talking about Nomad, who's doing amazing things, and chefs are doing very important things. And I have a lot of respect for chefs, but I think food goes beyond the dining table. Yes. Food goes beyond what's happening only in the soil. Food is like linking everything. And designers can be generalists who are in between a mother feeding her children and the government, or in between a retailer and farmers or seed developers, for example.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting question too, because you did something that really was pioneering, and you didn't have a lot of idols necessarily in the world of food design. If you were designing chairs, you could look to Eames and say, "Wow, there's somebody doing this great." But who are your idols, and who inspired you when you were really pioneering something new in the world of design?
Yeah, it sounds as if like 22 years ago, I knew that where I was going, but of course I had no idea. Like, it's not like you think, well, now I'm going to start a worldwide movement in food and design. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do the next 20 years. You just don't know. Yeah. And sometimes having these, like Eames, for example, as examples, it can also be paralyzing, because you know that you're just starting, you don't know where you're going yet. And then having all these chairs already, when you want to be a chair designer, can also be like discouraging. And so on one hand, I didn't know what I was doing at all. I was just enjoying the process, and I didn't have the limitation of having anybody else who was doing that for me. So I was just like very genuinely just exploring and doing, and some things I just did because I just had to make some money to come by, right? It's like very simple. Yeah. And then you go step by step, and every time you discover something new, and then you suddenly see connections that you didn't see before. And then before you know it, it's 10 years later and you've had started this whole thing.
It's amazing. Can you give me an example? I know you're going to take us through some of the things, some of your work, but I'd love to just hear kind of a firsthand example of design can really change people's lives. And the designer, regardless of your medium, is always a conversation between the world around you and the people you're working with. Can you give me an example of something that was eye-opening for you in terms of something you designed and you saw someone's reaction or a group of people's reaction to it, and that was eye-opening for you, that conversation?
Yeah, there are many examples, and maybe it's nice to name one that's also visitable tomorrow. That's a workshop with kids. I'm going to show a little bit about it. It's about how to get kids eating vegetables. This is kind of annoying thing when you have kids and they don't want to eat vegetables. And I found a really simple way that doesn't necessarily involve the classical design process, but the conceptual design process is very similar. So kids are doing a workshop, and the workshop is making jewelry, but it happens to be made from vegetables. And they have, as tools, they need to use their teeth. So they're actually shaping vegetables in the shape of any kind of jewelry or wands or any kind of things that they want to create. And they feel that they are playing, so they're not spitting the food out. But obviously they're also tasting. And if you want to accept a new flavor, you need to taste something about 7 times. So you just have to taste and taste. It's like learning a new language. But you have to find a way for kids to do that without having to force them every time or finding this power struggle at your dining table.
Yeah, so they need a minimum of 7 things to do to that carrot before they can start enjoying it, you think?
Yeah, well, it's actually any kind of... Just checking that your click is working. All right.
We have a click check happening too for my co-host, Tamika.
Great. Yeah, any kind of flavor, also for adults, it's the same thing. It's like learning a language. You just repeat the flavor and then your mouth adapts to that.
It's really interesting. And it's interesting too. Recently, something that's happened is people have lost their tastes during COVID and have to retrain themselves to do it. And there's kits now that you can do that. And part of that, there is a ritual to sort of eating and thinking deliberately about that to get your taste back too. Have you thought about that in your design at all?
Well, I lost my sense of smell as well due to COVID.
Yeah.
Well, I got it back, fortunately. Yeah. But I thought it was very interesting because I was in the shower and I knew that I needed to train it. And so I was imagining that instead of water, my shower was running with Coke, Diet Coke. Or a Diet Coke, Coca-Cola, sorry. Yeah. And
it's so good that your shower's very healthy.
I want to be fit in the shower.
Staying fit, even in your imagination shower. And
it's funny because your sense of smell, your mind can really recall those kind of things. So suddenly I was really showering in Coca-Cola. Thanks.
Thank you.
Are you going to stay here? You can just lie down and you can just see the screen there.
No, I want to watch this too.
So, about food. Anyway, we always talk about food. There is like hashtag food porn on Instagram. And I think it's one of the biggest hashtags. I always say it because I just think it's so funny that without any other sense than your visual sense, you just like focus on this fantasy of eating, because that's what it is. You don't know what it is, but it is tempting. We get tempted by food. But do you ever think about the lack of food or not eating? And I don't mean like starvation or deep hunger. I just mean not eating for a while, like fasting. Do you ever do that? Yeah. Yeah, I was fasting for about 5 days. And after a couple of days, I was so curious about hunger. I just wanted to find out who it was, that hunger. And so I took my arm and I lifted up my sleeve and I took my hand and I put it down my throat and I put it deeper and deeper and deeper. And then I was about here. And then I sensed that that's where it was. And I asked it to step on my hand, but it was a little bit shy, but I could grab him. but I had to be careful not to squeeze too hard. It's like a little chick. If you squeeze too hard, it dies. And if you're too loose, then it slips away. So I got it and I pulled it out again through my throat. And then it was in my hand and it wasn't running away. It was just staring at me. And it had big eyes. It was very light. And I wanted to know what it had to say. So I was listening. And it told me that, because it seemed scared, I said, "Are you scared?" And it said, "No, I'm not scared. I think you're scared. You should be scared of me." That's what it told me. You should be scared of me because I can kill you. I am lethal. So that's why I kind of stay out of sight, because I know that in this current time, people don't want me. They don't want me around. So I just try to stay out of the way, but I'm not scared. But I do have something to tell you, because I am part of mankind just as much as food is part of mankind. In the old days, I was always there. People were used to me having around. They were used to me being there. I was a regular part of their lives. They knew how to keep me in control and sometimes not. Then I grew into this big monster and everybody died. Hey, I will stay here always. But in the last years, it seems as if you are trying to abandon me. So you have been stuffing your body and filling your body and never wanting to feel me. And if you feel me, then it's uneasy. You feel this kind of uneasiness and you quickly want to grab a bite because that's what you long for, to never feel me. But I can tell you that if you allow me to be part of you once in a while, not too much, but every once in a while, allow me in your body, then what I can do is actually I can heal you. It's like with food. If you take too much food, it can also kill you. And if you take too much hunger, it can also kill you. But if you allow me to become part of you just a little bit, then I can heal you and I can sharpen your senses. I am a little bit like the brakes in music. Like if there is music without any quietness, it's a lot to take in. But if you can just breathe, then suddenly you can also enjoy the notes. That's what I am. But don't let me grow too much, because then I will kill you and that would be a shame. I will move on to someone else. And so hunger was telling me all of that, and I got goosebumps because I know it's true. And I know nowadays so many people are afraid to feel a little bit hunger or to feel a little break in the music, a little nothingness, that I thought this is a valuable story. And I put hunger into a ceramic object. And I had lots of little hungers in lots of ceramic objects, and they were part of an exhibition about hunger in Switzerland. And people could enter the exhibition through ribbons and then find a little ceramic object that they would put into their mouth and bite. Not too hard, but just bite a little on that object, put their teeth against the ceramic, and the ceramic would then transmit the voice of hunger inside your mouth. And funnily enough, it's called a bone conductor. It's inside the ceramic. It conducts the story, so it conducts the audio, and you can hear the audio from inside your mouth, inside your brain. And now he finds out that we weren't supposed to have this long Q&A, but it was fun. Thanks. And you hear the story inside your mouth, and And so you are not eating something, but you are biting on something. So you do have something in your mouth. So this was a hunger exhibition. And I wanted to start with that because we love talking about food, but we don't really love talking about hunger. And obviously, you know, too much hunger, we don't want that. I just want to make that clear. But a little bit of hunger is actually what sparks imagination, what sparks a lot of artists to drive their work, and what I think is really worth considering in your life. So these bone conductor devices, they're quite cool because you can put them in your mouth or on any other body part. But if you're standing next to it, then you can't hear the story. It's just when you actually make this contact between your bone or your teeth, and then you can hear it in your skull. So the absence of food, I think, is actually a wonderful, the lack. It's like we were just talking about, the lack of food culture in my youth was actually a great inspirator to imagine things. And I think imagination and food together is something that is a little bit underrated. So before we actually go to food, I want to ask you, what is food in the first place? Like, can anybody yes, please go ahead. Energy, exactly. Yeah, food is energy. Anybody else? What else? It's not one thing, obviously. Like, what is food? Sorry? Pleasure? Olives. Yeah, there's no wrong answer. It's pleasure. It can also be horrible. Like, it's no real judgment. Okay. Anybody else would like to say, well, like, what is food? A need? Absolutely. And life? Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Like, food is so banal that we sometimes it's so close to us that we forget to really look at it. But it's so important to us, right? Kilometers, yeah. And oil and gas, yeah. Resources, business, yeah. Food is the biggest economy in the world. Community, yeah. Home, yeah. All that is true. What? Memories, yeah. Rituals, yeah. It's politics as well. So I think we all have a sense of what, maybe not what is food, but what food could be, like olives and rituals and home. But when is food food? Like, let's give an example, and you can vote then. So a farmer is growing potatoes, and the potatoes are in the soil. Is that food? And if you think yes, just raise your hand. Not yet. You say yes. Okay. And when the potatoes are harvested and then a chef is cooking these potatoes in a big pot, is it then food? Yeah, you would say, like, I've got food in my pot. Okay, but not when it's in the field. On the table. And if you do a picnic on the floor. No, I'm seriously. I'm like, when does it become food? When it's always food, someone's saying. But if it's always food, how about weeds on the sidewalk? That's absolutely true, but also plastic can be food for fungi. So let's just think about human food for now. No, but it's absolutely correct. So let's focus on human food. So weeds on the sidewalk is not food? Depends on the level of hunger, can be. And food that is like a salad on the table in a beautiful bowl when people are sitting around it. Is that food? Yeah? And if we do then have dinner, but nobody's touching the salad, and the salad will be thrown in the bin, is it food? But then it's waste, right? So it's not food anymore, or is it? And I'm asking this not to annoy you and also not really to get one answer. So there's no right or wrong. But in my experience, I have thought about this to understand that if I am a designer and I work with food, then what do I precisely work with? And if you're not a designer, not working with food, but you're a human being eating, then still I think this question is interesting. Because I have observed that something can be beautifully on the table, but thrown away or be played with or puked out again. And if that happens, then I think it is actually not really food. It has the potential to be food, just like lichen on a tree. It's edible and it's actually a superfood. But I think that something is only food the moment you eat it. The moment that someone takes a bite of an organic substance, because chewing gum, is it food? It's kind of plastic, right? But if you actually take a bite, in my opinion, only then food becomes food. So not when it's already in your body, but only in that moment. You are the one transforming an organic substance into food. Because dogs, are they food? Like there's a lot of so I think food, when you put it inside your body, then you don't just look at this organic substance that could be really anything that's kind of digestible, but you look at the relationship between this organic substance and this eating human being. And who is that eating human being? This is someone, like we are all, someone with memories, someone with expectations about food, someone with previous experiences about flavors and smells and situations they eat in. This is a person that is believing in certain things. This is a person who is choosing for certain food because it has food preferences. This is someone with a family, with friends. This is a whole human being. And I think understanding that an organic substance only becomes food because this eating human being decides to put this in their body, then making it food makes that whenever you deal with food, you understand that you never just deal with the apple or with the lettuce or with the bread you have in your hands. You never just deal with this thing, with this material, with this substance. You always deal with the interaction between the human being and this thing. And why is this important? Well, for me as a designer, it's important because then I understand that whatever I create with food, it is influencing this human being. And the human being is also influencing the food. It's cooking the food, it's preparing it, it's chewing it, it's whatever you do with that food, well, you can put it in your body in many ways. But the human being also is influenced by the food, not just because you can get fat or you get a six-pack from that food, but also because the food has an influence on you in many ways, because you might get back memories of other times. You might be connected with other people through that food. So the food itself also has agency. The food has power over you. And I think that is a very interesting perspective, because normally we like to consider ourselves as kind of semi-gods, and we decide, I pick this and I pick that and I put it in my body. But actually the food also has a life of their own. And I really like to look at food from that perspective, and also in a humble way, see what can we do when we see food like that, and what can we also do for food. So I just want to show you a couple of projects I did before that might give you a little bit of insight of this way of thinking. This is a dinner, a Christmas dinner, and I'm not a fan of designing Christmas dinners. I always think, Christmas. It's so over-designed and it has so many cliches. Like, what can you really do with that? Or what can a designer add to that? But then I think actually the essence of Christmas is being together, feeling connected to each other and sharing food together. And I think if you look at that essence, it can be really simple. So normally you have a table with a tablecloth that hangs to the ground. But now you can take the tablecloth up into the air and make some slits in it. And so for this project, we invited 40 strangers that didn't know each other at the table. And these strangers were transformed into floating heads. So you were just a head with your hands, and then in a separate space, you had the rest of your body. And first of all, the reason for doing this is because physically you are really connected. Because if I move to that side, you next to me can also feel that. So together you kind of move in this kind of big installation. But also, because you are only a head and no identity through the way you're dressed, it's like wearing a uniform. People are getting more equal to each other. And lastly, like if you put people in a funny situation, especially strangers, then you have a reason to communicate. It's a really great icebreaker. I actually prefer this side, like headless people. This was the same project in Tokyo, and there I noticed that people were behaving very official, very kind of shy in the beginning. And once they took the decision to go and sit and put their heads through the tablecloth, it was just as if their masks were falling off and people were becoming very open and playful and interactive. So the simple setup is a very powerful way to make people change their behavior. So then you can wonder, like, yeah, and then what about the food? Well, the food itself is very simple. Like, what did the food have to tell us? Well, the food told us that we are primed or culturally educated that certain kind of foods belong together. So here you can see that she has, the woman in this picture has melon, and she has melon on 2 half plates. So just regular plates cut in 2, and everybody on her side of the table has melon. Everybody on the opposite side of the table has raw ham. Well, raw ham and melon is a classical Italian combination, so most people know that. So the food enables us to naturally start to share with each other and start to interact with each other. So you start to share and complete your dish. Well, the main course has the same idea. The first person gets a huge piece of rib from the oven, like a huge piece, which in Japan is quite funny because you never get huge pieces of meat at the table because people only cut in the kitchen and use chopsticks at the table. But here you had this piece of meat. The next person would get a whole pumpkin from the oven stuffed with seeds. And the last person would get, or the third person would get lettuce. And the lettuce would be clean, but it would have croutons and dressing and everything on top. And the last person would get potatoes. Well, people are social animals. You don't have to instruct them what to do. They will understand to cut everything up, make a big mess, and just share everything together, which, as a kind of enabler for human interaction during a Christmas dinner, it's a very useful thing to do because people want to behave like that. So the food is enabling them in a very easy way to do that. So I used to have 2 restaurants. And the first one was in Rotterdam in 2004. I started that, and actually I started it because I didn't really have anybody who wanted to hire me. People said, well, we don't know what to do with food and design, so yeah, you just go and search other things to do. And so I thought, well, if I start a restaurant, at least I have something to do. And I was quite excited because I could design everything, so the whole interior and the ceramics and everything. And so when I opened the place, I invited my friends and everybody I knew. And when they entered, I asked them, like, what is your date of birth? And if you know someone's date of birth, you know their zodiac sign. And if you know their zodiac sign, you know their element. And within Western astrology, there are 4 elements: water, air, fire, and earth. You know those, right? So we didn't tell people what we were up to, but they just got a ribbon in a certain color with a little twig of a herb that was corresponding to their element. And they got food that was also corresponding to their element, but they didn't really understand why. So here you have some earth food, root vegetables, earthy flavors, a kind of autumn palette, things that grow underneath the ground, mushrooms, those kind of things. And the text says, being with you on earth in chocolate. And then you have, on the left-hand side, fire. Spicy food, red food, obviously, flame treated food, and, like a warming kind of sensation. And on the right-hand side, there's water with, salty sea vegetables, fish, and a very kind of watery substances as well. So there was a next course. These 2 people are actually both fire people, and the guy is a fireman. I thought it was really funny. So what happened there is people didn't know what to expect, but while they were eating their own food, they started to have conversations about it and started to find out, like, why are you eating that and why am I eating this? And it was very nice to see if you step out of the expectation of a restaurant where you have a menu and say, well, I'm eating the chicken because that's just what I like and I don't really want to try anything else. And now you just open up another experience for people to have. What I thought was kind of interesting is that when we opened the place, we bought all this food. And we had like equal amounts for all 4 elements, obviously, in stock. So when we opened and people came in the morning, because it was a whole day experience, I noticed that most people who were coming in the morning were earth and air people. And after a few hours, I got a little bit anxious because I looked into the fridge and I saw we had all these fire and water ingredients still laying there, and I was afraid that we would run out of water, earth, and air. Thank you, food. But then after a couple of hours, these other people would come in, the water and the fire people, and eventually during the day it all evened out. And I have this big book of astrology, and I read in that big book of astrology that apparently water and fire people have the tendency to be late. So I thought it's a very kind of non-scientific but experiential way to see how that works. So what can food tell us? I think it is a really good question, because I think when we start to feel in connection to that food, then we can find out that it's a very powerful thing that can move us in ways that we didn't expect. So once I did this project for the Historical Museum in Rotterdam, and Rotterdam has been severely bombed during the Second World War. And after that, there was a hunger winter. So many people died of starvation, like the real hunger. And so this museum had an exhibition about that time. And they asked me to make some food for it. And so I went to the Resistance Museum. I got some beautiful recipes. And I just made that food really because I was just curious to find out, like, what were the things that people were eating then? I just wanted younger people to kind of experience how tulip bulbs, for example, taste, or sugar beets. So I made these, and I made some rations of food that people would get if they would come. And what happened there is that actually a lot of the visitors of that exhibition were children during the time of war. And they were talking about this bombardment of Rotterdam. Like, as children, they were looking out of the window and all these black ashes were coming down from the sky, and they called it black confetti. And these people, they were there and they were tasting these flavors. And what happened is that many of them, they didn't had these kind of flavors in their mouth for over 65 years. But by tasting them again, suddenly locks were opening up in their brains, and they got back memories of this time that their parents were still alive, this time that their siblings were sitting with them in the kitchen around this scarce food that they had. And it was such a beautiful part of their lives that they didn't even know they had been living through, because their brains had been locking off these memories. But that is what food can do. Food can open up memories, and I'm sure you know that. It's called the Proust effect. And after this project, I've been working a lot with elderly people who had been living through the hunger winter, and trying to find recipes that would trigger this kind of response. And we made a little movie out of that.
De oorlog begon 10 mei 1940. We hoorden vliegtuigen en we zagen allemaal parachutisten uit de vliegtuigen springen. Dat waren de moffen.
I'm fascinated by food, not necessarily about the taste of the food, but more about what it does to people, or how I can use food as a tool for people to communicate, for example, or how I can use food as a tool for people to have memories about themselves.
Ik ging dan met mijn vriendin naar de Zwarte Markt. Het was ook in de Jordaan, ik weet het ook niet meer zo precies. Nou, zij had altijd geld, want de ouders zaten allemaal in de zwarte handel. Dan kon je een plakkaat kopen, 11 gulden, een plakkaat. Dan deelden we, dan kreeg ik ook een stukje. Ik had geen centen.
Smell and taste immediately enter your brain in the center of your emotional being. So they don't have to go through the whole processing of the language part in your brain. Marcel Proust was a writer, and he has been describing tasting a madeleine, which is a French little cake that he was dipping in tea and eating, and he was describing the memory that he suddenly got of his childhood. De peertjes en de suikerbieten.
Ja. Toen zeiden we tegen mijn moeder, maak je peertjes? Nou ja, dat was dan die suikerbieten. Ja, mijn moeder was een vrouw, daar kon je de moord mee plegen. Die sprak wel natuurlijk wel, maar je hoorde nooit. Want bleek dat ze ook nog in verzet wat heeft gezeten. Mensen naar onderduikadressen, daar hebben wij ook nooit wat van geweten.
As a designer, you like to create a kind of environment or a kind of setting to have people have a certain experience. And the Proust effect is really hard to grasp, because you never really know what would trigger someone's memory. You never really know what has happened in this person's life, and you don't really know what kind of food or what kind of smell would be this trigger.
Samen emotie vielen in de paardenkak. Samen emotie zaten in de doosie. Doosie brak.
Samen emotie vielen in de paardenkak.
Samen
Emotie zaten in een doosje. Doosje brak. Samen emotie vielen in de paardenkak.
We speelden op straat altijd. En toen waren we met de springtouw met vriendinnetjes. Toen kwam die vrouw, en dat zal wel een Joodse vrouw geweest zijn. En die werd kwaad en die zei, je oude moer. Toen vertelde mijn moeder dat mijn vader ook Joods was. Want dat heb ik toch ook nooit geweten. Er werd helemaal niet over gesproken. Dat was toch niet nodig voor de oorlog?
When you use food to kind of grasp these stories, they become more tangible and they become more alive. So I think food is a great tool to make really living memories.
Mijn moeder was chefin op een atelier. En die had een baas en die had een notitieboekje met namen. Die moffen die zochten die man. En die hebben dat notitieboekje gevonden. En dan zijn ze al die adressen afgegaan. Nou, toen kwamen ze bij ons ook. We hadden net een Joods meisje hadden we in huis. En toen kwamen ze binnen. En toen gingen ze overal in de kasten kijken en vinden koekjes. Toen zeiden ze, nou, jullie leven er goed van. Ja, zei mijn zuster, mijn moeder is jarig. Nou, had hij gezegd, dan hebben jullie een hele mooie herinnering. Zei die kerel. Toen is mijn vader meegenomen en dat meisje, dat is meteen al doorgestuurd.
Waar naartoe?
Nou, naar Auschwitz. Ik heb mijn vader daarna nooit meer gezien.
When it comes to the experiences I make is to touch people. Eventually, maybe sometimes they're touched because they're very happy, and sometimes they're touched because they feel emotional, and sometimes they just understand a little bit more about the bigger picture of the world because they have been experiencing my work, and that is what I aim for.
So the woman she's the grandmother of the filmmaker. Her name is Jopie, and we have been trying lots of things with her. For example, giving her sugar beets that were prepared as if they were poached pears, because her mom used to do that. So she would like pretend that sugar beets were poached pears and see if she would get memories. And actually, I didn't do it right because she were eating them. She said, nah, it's not really well. And then other things, they did work. So it's very kind of uncertain, but it's a really beautiful process because it's really a way to get deeper into someone's personal memories. And what I have learned from Jopie is that she thought that the way we eat now, in the sense that many people think that vegetables are very healthy. Well, for her, vegetables are just animal feed. So in her mind, being healthy is eating butter and meat and candy and cookies. And she's still alive. She's getting dementia. That's a shame, but it's interesting to see that people's view over time of what is healthy can also really change. So if we consider food as something that is objective, then it is not. Food is never objective because you are the one eating the food. And so you will have your own experience with that food and your own opinion on that food. I want to show you a project from a student of mine. So it's not my project, but I think it is a beautiful way of showing the story of food, like what food can really tell you. Her name is Adelaide Tam, and she was a student of mine, and she wanted to graduate, and she said, I really love beef. She loved beef. But she said it's also a shame because cows are amazing, big, majestic animals, but we just chop them up so easily and then we sell them so cheap in the supermarket. And so Adelaide was interested in slaughtering. So she went to slaughterhouses. She made films in slaughterhouses, and she was also part of a ritual slaughtering in Indonesia that is very different and just in nature than the slaughterhouses that you can see in Europe, for example, and in the rest of more industrialized world. And so she wanted to do a project about slaughtering. And while she was investigating, she noticed that, especially in Dutch slaughterhouses, there is no waste. All the parts of the animal, they always go to whatever kind of places. They might even end up as dog food. But the only waste that she could find were the cases of the Sten gun that they're using. And so she had been collecting these cases. And she came to me once, and she was showing me like a whole handful of cases. She said, look, I just have the life of well, I think 25 cows in my hand, because every case, every bullet case is the life of one cow. And these cases are worthless. They're not really valuable. But the life of that cow is. And so what she did is she made a vending machine for her graduation. And I'll go back with the reasons why, but I first want to show you the film that she made. It's a short film.
I am a paperclip. If you want to buy me, put 5 cents in this machine. I was a bullet case. I was a bullet. I took away the life of one cow.
So it's not as if Adelaide doesn't want people to eat meat. It's really up to people's own opinion. But she wants to find a way to really appreciate that meat if you do want to eat it. So actually I have one of these paper clips. They're a little bit thicker than a regular one. And it's amazing because if I hold it, I really feel this connection. And the reason why she made paper clips is because paper clips are such mundane objects, like paper clips, whoever thinks about a paper clip. And that's how we also treat beef or any other kind of industrialized meat. You know, it's cheap, it's there, we eat it, we buy it, we waste it. But what if you do really feel this kind of magical connection? Because that's really what it is. We talk about food like, yeah, it's home, it's pleasure, it's the basic necessity, it's energy. But it's also kind of magical, right? It's something that grew, something that developed itself, something that you can just put inside your body, that becomes part of you. This whole cow that had a life, that was born, that was once inside the womb of another cow, is now inside of you. I mean, it is kind of amazing. And I think the moment we find more appreciation for food and that we really feel how magical it really is, that we are capable to access food. And I know that it's not distributed evenly, and it's not everywhere. But still, I think when you do have access to food, then appreciating it and celebrating it, that it's there, will also make you be more sustainable. And I think if we think about the future of food, that would be a really good thing, right? So I know my time is running up, so I thought just to show you one more project. And this is something that I'm skipping. It's about root vegetables and cooking in clay, which is a lot of fun. And I'm happy to tell you whenever we see each other in these next days. Actually, the colors of clay are the colors of skin. So all the colors of clay that you can find in the earth are actually very similar to our human race's skin color. And when you create vegetables cooked in clay or other kinds of animals or vegetables cooked in clay, then you can create sculptures, but you can smash the sculptures because eventually it's what's behind that skin that matters. That's basically what this is about. But I'll tell you when we meet if you want to know more about it. So the last project I want to show you, because I think, you know, we spend so much time talking about food that we forget that food is never about that carrot. Food is about what it enables. And this is also a project that I want to show with you that is not about the food, but without the food, it would have been impossible. This is a project that I did in Budapest with Roma women. And I think probably, especially if you're from this country, you know that there's a very frictionless relationship between Roma and Hungarian society. So keep that in mind when you see this film.
This is a performance around a group of Roma Gypsy women. I think if you want to think about understanding between different social groups, I think food is a very, very strong tool that you can use to create a bond between people. To create understanding for Gypsy people, I think to use food is one thing, but then to be fed by someone is another thing. And I think that's why also it's only women, because it's mothers that feed their children. It's this kind of essence of life. I think the idea of feeding is a very intimate. A mother feeds her child with food, but also with love at the same time. I thought about making this installation where people are getting physically fed with food, but also with stories.
Az almával az a kedves emlékem, hogy összegyűltünk így gyerekek, és engem a nagy gyerekek nagyon-nagyon szerettek valamiért, mert azért én betyárka voltam, és vittek magukkal, és kerestek egy nagy házat, ahol nagyon sok a almafa. És beloktunk, és hát leszettük az almát, és majd jött a parasztember, és így nagyon kellett rohanni, nagyon-nagyon futottunk, szóval életem első olyan futás és utolsó, és amikor futottam, és utánam kiabálta, vagy utánunk kiabált, hogy te büdös cigány, és kiderült, hogy csak én voltam cigány.
The installation is made in a way that you can't see each other. You're sitting under the table, you have this little tent, inside there are pictures and text and a flashlight, and it's a kind of strange environment. And then you sit there and the lady tells you her memories and the memories of the food that she has, and she will include you in her life in that way.
Karácsony volt, és bejött egy ilyen, nem tudom, ilyen tenyeres talpas nőre emlékszem valójában. És volt egy lány, akivel folyamatosan együtt mentünk házról házra, mi az intézetről intézetre, vagy nem tudom, hogy mondjam neked. Ő szőke volt. És akkor bejött, azt kérem, meg azt kérem. És akkor így valamiért kellett mennünk vele, kimentünk ő hozzá, és egész nap takarítani kellett, vagy jöttek a vendégek, és betettek minket egy ilyen hideg szobába, de nagyon éhesek voltunk. Vissza is vittek minket este, és annyira gyönyörű volt, annyira szép, csodálatos szép, mert csak mindenkinek lehet ilyen karácsonya, hogy így kinyílt a díszterem ajtaja, és megláttam a magas fát, csodálatosan feldíszítve, és sok-sok gyerek ott eszik, és kiabál, és beszélget, és jól érzi magát. És a slusszpoén az, hogy csak akkor ehettem narancsot. Karácsonykor ehettem csak narancsot, és kaptunk mindenféle tárgyakat, ilyen hülyeségeket, és én elcseréltem narancsra. Elkezdtem így, hogy neked adom ezt, te add nekem a narancsot, és rengeteg narancs volt.
If you have had that experience and someone shared her food with you and her story with you, you cannot hate that person. You have to like that person. It's Immanuel Kant that said that if you break bread with each other, you can't break each other's neck.
Adok egy olyan dalt, amire gyerekkoromban mindig elaltatott egy nevelőnél. Jó? Csukd be a szemed. Légy szíves! Szél viszi messzi a fellegeket, s mögötte lángol az ég. Nyújtsd ide, édes, a kis kezedet, ki tudja, látlak-e még? Ki tudja, ölele a két karom, Ki tudja, csokol-e a szád galambom, ki tudja, mely nap és mely hajnalán indul az után tovább. Örültem, hogy itt voltál. Azt szeretném, ha nyugodtan itt ülni, majd jön egy kísérő, aki elkísér.
Nagyon köszönöm.
Nagyon jó volt, mert tényleg olyan volt, mint egy kuckot, tehát így azonnal egy ilyen nagyon személyes térbe kerültem, ami teljesen azonnal magával ragadott ezekkel a fényképekkel, meg pont szembe velem egy szoptatós kép volt, meg nagyon jó mondatok voltak, meg látszott, hogy gyerekrajz, szóval azonnal egy életet éreztem. Olyan volt valóban, mint hogyha a saját anyukám lenne, vagy én, mint mikor anyuka voltam, vagy most is az vagyok, mikor odalépett hozzám az Ágnes, gondolom ő volt az, ilyen nagyon kedves volt, és etetett, és nagyon szép volt.
Yeah, the applause is really for the women who participated here because they thought that no one would show up. They didn't even want to do this. Well, it's not as if I forced them, but I did say, well, I don't know how this will end up. Like it's a very sensitive thing. But we just tried it. Eventually they fed 400 people over 4 days. And they found out that people were very interested in their stories. And it's a kind of power balance because normally they are the ones receiving either discrimination or charity, but now they were the giving party. And that really shifted everything. I know my time is up. I will be around in the next day so we can chat if you have questions. But I wanted to ask, do you also want to know what food has to say to you? So let's do a tiny experiment with chewing gum. Ta-da! Is the chewing gum here? So who thinks chewing gum is food? I think it's the strangest thing, right? Chewing gum. Chewing gum is highly designed, by the way. If you think about like actual product design, like chewing gum is much more difficult to design than a chair, for example, because you need to think about consistency, about mouthfeel, about how long will the flavor last. How can I make this from cheap ingredients so we don't spend too much money on it? How does it not stick on the conveyor belt into the machine? How can it be packaged right? Like if you think about industrial product design, and industrial food product design, then you might say that product design is like high culture and food design, like for industrialized products, is low culture. But actually it's high design because it's much more complex to make a bag of gummy bears, for example, or cup noodles than a chair. So if you ever go to the supermarket, now you can think, this is actually the food design museum. And the entrance is free, and you can just walk around and enjoy all the designs that you see there, because it's quite high designed. Since I'm just talking now because I know that the chewing gum is being spread, so I'm just filling the time here. I just wrote a book, which you also mentioned. It's not out yet. It's called Lick It. But when the book's out on my website, you don't have to buy the book to get to my website, where you can see a tour guide for the supermarket. And then you can download it on your phone. And then you can have a guided tour through the Food Design Museum, your personal supermarket, and have this tour experience. So does everybody has chewing gum? All right. Oh, you're already putting it in your mouth. Oh my God. I didn't pay attention. All right, just let's be quick with it then. Well, I wanted to do a whole introduction on how to smell it and open the paper. Wow, you're so quick. Are you hungry? You didn't open it. Well, you just go ahead, do it anyway. Okay, since we're all here in this stadium now, let's just chew really hard. Like chew, 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 chew. I want you to really, really chew that haba baba. And know that when you do that, because I don't know if you had some wine and then came here and in the dark, like you could have been falling asleep a little bit in my story, which I completely understand if you would. But this will wake you up because chewing gum will help the blood flow in your brain. So it's always a good idea to chew. And chewing is also anyway really good for your system. I don't know if Hubba Bubba is good though. That's another story. Who can blow bubbles? Show me. I mean, show each other. Like I just want to, there's one. Does it stick to your beard? Okay, now we have been chewing. Just a few more very hard chews and round it off. So now I would like you to take the chewing gum out of your mouth. No, just in your hand. No, just hold it. That's all. No scary things here. It's really easy. I just want to know what kind of shape it is when you take it out of your mouth. And you don't have to show me, it's just for you. And if you're at home, you can also do this, of course, in your, maybe you have some chewing gum around. Where are you? Is it that camera or there? Hey, everybody at home, nice that you're here. So if you have it in your hand, some people will have like a bowl. So raise your hand if you have a bowl. Did you? Few people. Yeah, there. I can't really see you in the back. Just make some sound if you do. There's one. Yeah. So people, and you have, people who have this round chewing gum are you making it round now? Yeah. I thought so. So apparently when you are someone who makes like a ball of your chewing gum, you're a very structured kind of person. You're nodding. Is that correct? Yeah? Anybody else? You feel structured and kind of, I don't know how to say that, maybe like your energy is kind of together, like you're focused. Yeah? And who takes it out of your mouth and it's like just kind of an organic mess? Can you just raise your hands? Yeah? Quite a lot of people have that. So apparently, if you have that, like you're just a little bit more like chaotic. Yeah? And more flexible maybe as well. I mean, that's like, and so do you recognize that? A little bit more chaotic, but maybe also more creatively minded? And then who has this string? You have a string? Any more strings? There's another one. Yeah, it's a little bit more rare. Like a longer attention span? Would that be? Any shapes that I didn't mention yet? Anybody? What? A heart shape. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can't even tell that one, but it's beautiful. Yeah. Anyone else? Oh, a tooth. Oh, your own tooth shape. That's nice. I once had a student and she made chocolates from the shape of her own inside of her mouth. So if we ate the chocolates, we could actually feel how the inside of her mouth was feeling. So it was very cool. So this is what your chewing gum is telling you about yourself. And I'm happy that you feel it relates to you. I made it all up. But, we as human beings, we do connect to stories, and food is always telling us stuff. And I hope that you enjoy and appreciate your food today and tomorrow and anytime it comes near you. So thank you for your attention.